Welcome to Technology and Education. Today I'm Richard Smith.
And I'm Caroline Crawford, and today we're talking about an article that we came across rather interesting. It's by Deborah Lee Scott, and the title of it is How Higher Education in the U.S. Was Destroyed in 5 Basic Steps. I'm not sure destroyed is necessarily the choice of words that I would use, but
Being destroyed?
closer.
In the process of being destroyed?
Well, it's an interesting discussion to have, and there are 5 different steps.
Okay, so what?
So I thought we'd discuss each of the steps in turn.
Okay.
Okay, so step 1, defund public higher education.
Excellent idea. Defund public education.
I don't know if it's an excellent idea, but that's the first point.
And how is this happening? Even though I know that higher education is being defunded.
How is this happening?
Yes.
The states, it used to be that the states supported the universities, and now it's significantly lower level, and the only way to make up that amount of funding in order to maintain the university structure is to heighten the level of tuition by the students. And there are different ways that the different universities are going about this process, but the bottom line is that higher education is further and further out of reach for someone who's actually paying their own way through.
Right, because at one point the states used to pay just about all the tuition for the students in the state universities.
A goodly amount. I agree with the concept that everyone should have some skin in the game, where the student needs to pay a goodly portion of tuition. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but the heightened level of expectation concerning the tuition costs allocated to the different levels, and there are so many different fees that are held within that tuition that it's not only about the classroom experience and paying for the classroom and the instructional aspect of it, but there's so many other aspects of the university that are being supported by the student that it's become very, very interesting, and that's one of the reasons that the tuition has been heightened to this extent.
Yeah, the state legislatures simply cut the amount of money
Significantly cut.
that they give to the state colleges, and makes the colleges makes it very difficult for the colleges to carry out their mission.
Right.
Okay, what else did you have to say?
Well, another one is step 2.
Step 2.
Deprofessionalize and impoverish the professors, and in parentheses, and continue to create a surplus of underemployed and unemployed PhDs. So, step 2, deprofessionalize and impoverish the professors.
That has a familiar ring to it. You know, rumor has it that college professors all make a ton of money, but in reality,
I'm sure there are a few that do very well for themselves. I don't happen to be one of them. But I'm not doing it for the salary. After saying that, it would be nice to be able to pay my bills.
Yeah. Well, I think people, you know, as in public schools, the teachers are told, well, you shouldn't be doing this for the salary. You should be doing it because you love children, and in that
and
way,
that's wonderful until the bills come due.
Yeah, and that way you can keep the salaries really low.
Yeah.
The same thing for higher education, and even in higher education, the salaries, if a high salary is not really that high when you consider salaries available in business. But the other trick that they do here is that because I guess the claim is that the colleges are public colleges are receiving less money, is that they do not hire as many tenure track and tenured professors as they do in the past. And if I read that correctly, and now they're hiring a lot more adjuncts.
Well, there are many political reasons for that. Claiming it's financial, but the truth is it's a political reason. The tenured faculty usually have a stronger voice in what goes on way back when the mission of a university was actually guided by the faculty versus administration. I'm sure that's still true in most higher education institutions. But perhaps that has shifted more towards a business view versus an academic, what is the mission of your university? To educate the populace towards intellectual and critical thinking skills and such within different areas of expertise, as well as liberal understanding, liberal arts understanding. And that may have been shifted over time towards a more business standpoint. For example, most people with whom I speak who are not part of education, higher education, take for granted that when we're traveling to conferences, when we're traveling for work, all of these costs are taken care of by the institution. and they're shocked. The usual response is, well, why would you travel if the university's not paying for it? It's like, well, that's a business viewpoint, and that's not what happens in
Well,
higher education.
Well, it's interesting because it goes back to the impoverishment of the faculty. Because on one hand, they say the university will tell you that in order to get tenure, you have to
Develop a reputation in the field,
Right.
travel to conferences for presentations, and how else would you obtain part of the promotion and tenure process is external reviewers. How would you get to know potential external reviewers if you're not traveling to these conferences to get to know other people?
Right. So it's a requirement that the college puts on the faculty, and on the other hand, in general, it's an unfunded requirement.
Well, there's a little bit here and there that's offered.
Right, but it's a little bit. It's not as if when you travel for business, everything is paid for. Your hotel is paid for.
Oh no,
your
absolutely
expenses are
not.
paid for.
Oh no.
So you're
It's coming out of your own pocket.
Right. So what it does is it tends to
lessen
in,
the level of travel unless someone
well, it
for
decreases,
some reason has so much money to.
Yeah, it decreases an already low salary.
Right.
So and it decreases
And one
it
of the
because
responses,
it's a requirement that you go to conferences and make a presentation, and then you as a faculty member are required to spend a large part of that expense goes to you.
Well, but consider teaching, research, and service. There are three components to this position. So the research and service, you have to present your research within a professional realm, as well as the service, not only to your university, but more importantly in many instances, is to your profession. How do you offer this service to the profession? You must travel to the different organizational meetings.
Now, on the other hand, with the increase in the number of adjuncts that are hired, this is a further way of decreasing the effectiveness of the universities, because adjuncts really don't have a particular loyalty to a university. They're very low paid, and since they can move from one university to another, and they don't even know if they're going to be hired again the following semester, they are not the type of faculty that can mentor students, can build relationships with students. They're just there simply to get through that course. Or that's the bottom line effect. I mean, I'm not saying that adjuncts don't want to do a good job.
I was going to say, most adjuncts I know are amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing, but they're limited in the effect that they can have if they're not going to be teaching these courses.
True.
Again as part of the faculty. They may be someplace else. They could be fired in an instant.
That's true.
Well, what else did she have to say here? This is getting interesting.
Well, step 3, move in a managerial/administrative class that takes over governance of the university, which is what I mentioned earlier about the primary mission of the university used to be engaged and focused upon by the faculty, and that has shifted over the decades to much more of a business model, whereas the leadership is focusing the attention versus the faculty being the grassroots effort that states what our mission is, what our areas of focus will be, and such.
And I think in addition there has been an increase in the number of administrators hired at universities.
Yes. It's rather interesting talking to people from around the U.S., the number of faculty hires versus the number of staff/administrative hires over the previous several decades.
And the more administration that you have, the less influence and power the faculty has to make its own curriculum and instruction decisions.
I don't know if I would state that as an overarching absolute, but in several instances that may be the case. But the more time, effort, and monetary allocation, especially when we're talking about student monies, student tuition costs, that is going towards the administrative versus the instructional.
Well, it's a little difficult to make an argument that you don't have enough money to support students in a certain area if the president of your university is making over $1 million a year, which is what's happening with a number of universities. Now, I'm not against people making a lot of money, but on the one hand, if you're paying people really large salaries, and you're telling your students that there's not enough money to support particular activities, then I think there's a problem, and it's one more thing that digs away at the independence of universities.
I'm not sure I have a comment on that. I mean, if the question is who is allocating salary funding, and why would that kind of salary be allocated to those positions when this is an instructional institution,
right,
and that's the mission?
Because
it's an interesting discussion to
because
have.
they're beginning to resemble more and more a
business model,
or a business and a function of business to prepare people for business. Anything else that we're coming out with?
Oh, well, we have a step 4.
Step 4.
We have 5 total. So step 4, move in corporate culture and corporate money. Well done. Nice segue.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So corporate culture and corporate money. The funding, the external funding push is a significant reward. There is a significant reward system in place for faculty to pull in outside funding, and it is instead of perhaps or along with the necessity and effort towards publishing within international national referee journals, whereas you have the peer review process and it's a high quality product, and not only the faculty member but the university being held to a higher standard based upon the quality of publications. There is a significant push over the past, I'd say, decade, maybe decade and a half, where external funding is touted as being necessary, appropriate, and desirable. So in order to get ahead at many universities, external funding is a mandated necessity, and that is highly rewarded versus someone who is publishing important works in peer-reviewed national and international journals. And I'm not saying that's across the board. I'm saying that is something that is being pushed and significantly rewarded.
And if it's money coming in from business, I think another thing that happens, well, maybe even disassociated from that, but you'll hear now lots of new articles in the news where people just say, if you go to a university and you can't get a job afterwards, then you're wasting your time and money. So what's happened is that...
looking at it from the corporate culture standpoint?
Right. So at one point you went to a university so you could become educated, you would learn more about the world.
Define educated.
And you would understand how things worked in a variety of subject areas.
Looking at it from a liberal arts viewpoint, you're a stronger component of the citizenry now. You have higher order thinking skills, and you can discuss different topics at a higher level of understanding.
Whether it's in
critical thinking,
liberal arts, or it's schools of engineering, all that sort of stuff. But
it used to be the day if you needed to get a job, you went to one of the technical schools. If that was the outcome that you desired, then you went to a technical school.
Right. But what's happening now is that it has changed from getting an education for getting an education's sake, so that you will become, in essence, a better person, to getting an education so you can get a job. So if a school is not producing students who can immediately get jobs, then that school is a failure, and it's another reason for getting rid of a particular school or a set of schools, and in particular targeting schools of liberal arts, because it's a constant drumbeat saying, well, if you go to a liberal arts school, you're not going to get a job. Hence, what should happen? Get rid of the liberal arts schools. Now, what goes on in liberal arts schools is that you learn about history, you learn how to write, you learn how to express your thoughts, and this is not really all that good for many organizations, corporate organizations in particular. They'd simply rather have people who are consumers rather than people who think before they consume.
I understand that that's the reality of the situation in today's higher education marketplace. I don't agree with that viewpoint. I'm much more a middle-of-the-road person where, yes, you absolutely should know as you're going into your bachelor's, master's, doctoral degree programs what your options are, and that should be a part of the curriculum. going and obtaining a degree with the focus upon getting a job, I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with that. I see it as more of a two-prong approach where,
Right.
yes, you should be able to come out with some type of skill set that is worthwhile. On the other hand, obtaining a decent liberal arts education where you can think and critically analyze is vitally important
Right.
to our citizenry, which is why the K-12 education system was always mandated in this country to be free to the citizenry. We needed well-educated people who can think, discuss, analyze. Whether that's occurring, that's a different discussion. But
Well, but we're discussing ways of destroying the education system, and
right.
and that is one way of
Well, my little
destroying it.
philosophical belief is that you should have a two-prong approach. But what's actually going on, I would suggest, is significantly different than my little two-prong approach.
Absolutely different. And by the way, we've reached the end of our time for this edition of Technology and Education Today. For Technology and Education Today, I'm Richard Smith.
And I'm Caroline Crawford. Bye.